Today is a very special day for us Lord of the Rings fans, because today marks the 49th anniversary of J.R.R. Tolkien's passing, and of course I am well aware that Amazon's Rings of Power comes out today. But this video isn't about that. I don't even know if I'm going to dedicate a video to that series, to be honest. I wouldn't even know where to begin, and not in a good way. Yet my feelings are, unsurprisingly, the exact opposite with the original trilogy. They are my favourite 3 movies since I was a kid, and I'm pretty sure that's never going to change. A couple of weeks ago, I was lucky enough to watch The Fellowship of the Ring in the cinema, and luckily for me, it's actually the second time I do it, given that I was actually too young to watch these movies when they first came out. In fact, if you were born in 1995 or after, chances are you never got the chance to see them in the theatre. But if you do get the chance, jump on it. Trust me. Cause these movies, they haven't aged a day. They are truly a staple in all aspects of filmmaking. I mean, I'd been meaning to make videos on these films since I started this channel, but I was just overwhelmed by how much meaning they have, by how tall is the pedestal they sit on for me. I could ramble about them for hours and still get like I didn't get anywhere, or told only a chunk of what I wanted to say. So my solution for now will be to dedicate one video of reasonable length to each of these 3 movies over the course of the next few weeks, leaving plenty of room for plenty of Lord of the Ring content in the future. So for now, let me lay out some initial thoughts and make a case as to why, from a filmmaking standpoint, The Fellowship of the Ring is the greatest of the 3. There are basically countless elements and details as to why I consider this the best film trilogy of all time. Is it the fact that it was the most expensive production ever at the time, and arguably the biggest movie gamble of all time? Was it the fact that Miramax had been negotiating with Peter Jackson for 4 years until they finally pulled the plug after having offered him a measly $75 million to tell the story in 2 movies? Until New Line Cinema swooped in at the last second to greenlight 3 movies with $300 million behind them? Was it the fact that Stuart Townsend didn't want to rehearse or learn how to ride a horse, so they had to recast him, forcing Viggo Mortensen to arrive when shooting had already started, with no time to rehearse or prepare for the role, and breaking his toe during his very shot in the process? Or was it the fact that Howard Shore incorporated the fictional languages of men, elves, dwarves, and even black speech into the lyrics of the music? Or do I just like these movies because I saw them as a kid? Well, turns out I love them because of all of these things, and too many others to list. I mean, speaking of the music, there is an amazing 1-hour essay here on YouTube analyzing the themes, what they represent, how they relate to each other, on top of these 3 other video essays this guy made analyzing the music of each movie individually, dedicating over an extra hour and a half just to the f***ing music. Although sadly, if you don't speak Spanish, there's not much point in you watching these videos.
Bitácora espacial.
But I mean, that's 2 hours and a half that you can spend learning about just the bloody music. So yes, this is how complex the world that the movies made is. It was the only way to do the writings of Tolkien justice, by making it as complex and adding as much detail as he did to every page. I mean, Tolkien could spend like 2 pages describing a freaking tree, and that's the approach the movies took. But which one of these is the best? I mean, really think about this for a second. If you love these movies, or if you like good movies in general, which one of these 3 would you say is the best? I knew it. I can already see how at least half of you are not even answering the question truthfully. I didn't ask you which one do you like more. I'm asking which one is objectively, from a filmmaking standpoint, the best Lord of the Rings movie. Ah, now we're talking. Now in most cases, it's a pretty straightforward question. In The Godfather, for example, you can't really go wrong with picking the first one. Even if you choose the second one, it'd still be okay, because the third massively drops in quality compared to the first 2. I mean, I never even saw the third Godfather. In Back to the Future, I mean, let's be honest, there's not even a debate. Same goes for Nolan's Batman. Who wouldn't choose The Dark Knight? Now let's move on to Star Wars. I love Return of the Jedi, but let's not kid ourselves here. And it's the same old story in the Fistful of Dollars trilogy. Pirates of the Caribbean, I love you Davy Jones, but the first one is the best. Alien 3 is a pile of donkey shit compared to the first two. Die Hard? Nah, that's not one of them.
This is known.
I mean, maybe Toy Story, but that's not even a trilogy anymore, so yeah, I guess Lord of the Rings is one of a kind. The only trilogy where the quality is either maintained or got even better over time. Well duh, obviously the answer is Return of the King. It took home all 11 Oscars it was nominated for. Aha! You make an excellent point, you marvelous cinephile who's watching closely. How can I argue against that? Well, at least in my opinion, the first installment was the one that had the biggest ask. I mean, bear in mind that this was an unproven IP when it first came out. Fantasy movies sucked back in the day. Yet the Fellowship of the Ring managed to take its story so seriously that it managed to treat such story as if it was real history. Exactly what Tolkien intended when he wrote the books. The first movie didn't have all the fancy great army battle scenes and didn't pick off in the middle of the tension and nearer to the climax like the other two. Fun fact, why do you think that Gollum is barely in the movie? Because the freaking motion capture technology wasn't even ready yet when the movie came out in 2001. It still needed an extra year of development. That's why this is the movie with the biggest use of practical effects. Because the tech wasn't quite ready yet for those amazing shots of Pelennor Fields 2 years later. Not to mention that the first hour and a half, almost 2 hours, barely has any action in it. Most of it is subtle exposition and brilliant character introductions. The Fellowship of the Ring had to literally lay the groundwork and hook hundreds of millions of people to convince them to turn their December trip to the cinema into a yearly event for 3 years straight.
Josh, duck! I have a mop!
This movie introduces the Forging of the Rings, Sauron, the whole freaking Fellowship, the races, the conflict between such races, their cultures, the Shire, Rivendell, the elves, the conflict, set the stakes for the story, the power of the ring, the dynamics between the characters, explain why each of them individually think the way they think and act the way they do, their struggles, their doubts, their strengths and weaknesses, the villains, the orcs, the urks, the freaking goblins for God's sake. And it achieves all of this while cramming in the occasional marvelous action scene like those with the Nazgul, who are literally legendary in terms of side villains. I mean, sit back and take this all in, because this whole trilogy is a miracle. But this movie is definitely the biggest miracle of the three. It is because of its success that the other two came in like bigger and bigger hype trains 1 and 2 years later respectively. It's truly incredible how this movie, 21 years later, is still this timeless. And I am so fortunate to get a chance to watch these again in the cinema. I mean, you thought the Balrog was scary at your screen? Mate, you haven't seen shit. When you literally feel its growl in your chest, and its steps, they keep getting closer and closer. I mean, holy freaking shit. In fact, let me conclude by stating that the Balrog is arguably the best ever side monster ever put to screen. Because the aliens, well, the movie's about aliens. They're the whole point. My man Godzilla, same thing. He's the freaking title. But in terms of movie monsters that just randomly appear, oh my god. We see Gandalf avoiding Moria multiple times, but we don't know why. We hear about it as if it was a myth. We barely get to see it, yet do not know its name. Then the group has no choice but to face the long dark of Moria. And once there, hundreds of goblins are scared shitless and run for their lives. We hear its growl, its footsteps. We see its power as it brings down the wall until it suddenly, finally appears. And still looks amazing 21 years later. Okay, I'm sorry, I went on a bit of a Balrog tangent there. And thank you once again for making it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, don't hesitate to leave a like, subscribe, click the bell so you get notified, all that good stuff. And drop me a comment. Do you agree with me? Do you also think that from a filmmaking standpoint, this one's the best? Or maybe you don't. But come on, I want to read your lovely voice. Also, don't forget to stay tuned for my videos on the second and third films coming soon, of course. And will I be making a Rings of Power video? I don't know. I don't know if I'm even gonna watch it, honestly. We'll see. I think I'd rather just hit the theaters and watch these ones over and over again. But this is all I've got for now. And I hope to see you all around here very often. For this is me, signing off.
When the cold of winter comes, starless night will cover day. In the veiling of the sun, we will walk in bitter lanes.
What's that? This, my friend, is a pint. It comes in pints?
Oh.
I'm getting one.